Welcome to the voice of Bold Business Radio, the show about ways to stay competitive in a changing market, break through business plateaus, and respond to the changing expectations of today's customers. Your host, Jess Dewell, is a rapid growth entrepreneur, consultant, and business advocate with a 20-year track record of business excellence. She candidly discusses how to achieve your growth strategy and realize your company's unfulfilled potential. Now, here's Jess.
Welcome to the Voice of Bold Business Radio. It is Tuesday. It is our live stream day, and you are in the right place for conversations about what we need as leaders today, what we need and the problems, the issues, the curiosity that we bring around, what technologies will help us get to 5 years and 10 years from now, how quickly customer expectations are changing, and can we be on top of and in front of those trends and changes, as well as the marketplace changes. How easy is it for competitors to come in? Are we ripe for disruption? Do we have what it takes to be on target, make good, strong decisions with confidence? And the answer is yes, because you're listening here today. This is program 199, your growth mindset. We want to be thinking about today how we're using the experiences that we have, both the ones we seek and the ones that come to us accidentally, in terms of building our capacity. So, with that in mind, we have an amazing special guest. This is somebody that I met a really long time ago. We talk occasionally, and there was this tickle in my ear that said, I have to talk to Jeff Barnes. And so I reached out, and sure enough, the time was right, and he is here today with us. He is the COO at Celebrity Lifestyle Brands. He leads a portfolio of companies that stem from a strong focus on onboarding, integrating, and expanding brands that are in the fashion, retail, SaaS, and e-commerce industries. Jeff, welcome to our show today.
Thank you very much, Jess. I'm really happy to be here and excited to be talking with your audience today.
Yes. See, that's what I want to hear. We already have hit the first hurdle. You are excited to be.
Absolutely.
And
Wake up every morning with an attitude of gratitude, and everything else is gravy from there, right?
It does. And more importantly, you're at ease. Some people come on the show and there's so much, I'm not so sure about this technology stuff. I've never done this before. What if this or what if that? And I'm like, hey.
Well, I really hope I'm at ease, because that in my entire role in corporate world and in entrepreneurship, my role was always integrating technology into business and making businesses grow as a result. So if I can't get it right, then there's probably no hope for anybody that doesn't understand technology.
Well, you know what? I'm going to go from the perspective of I only get it right part of the time, and that's okay because we learn, and then the integration, the execution, and the completion is stronger because of my mistakes, my team's mistakes, and I know you have that experience too.
Oh, gosh. In droves.
Yeah. So we're thinking about this, and maybe this is what it was. I was sitting down, and I remember the moment that you popped back into my head, Jeff, in terms of one of the things that I feel very strongly about, and people hear me talk about a lot, is that we are all technology businesses, whether or not we have technology that we are providing our customers. And I would love to have your take on that, because it is something we share in common, yet your view is a little different than mine. And I think it's a great way to set the stage for talking about a growth mindset.
Sure. I think you're 100% right, is that no matter what business you are in today, you are in the technology business, right? There's other businesses that you are in, marketing, sales, obviously are a big part of it, but technology has to be at the forefront of pretty much any business today. And I'll give you an example. We have a chiropractic business my wife and I own, and she's the doctor. She does all the doctor stuff, and she wants to do all the doctor stuff, and that's great because she's an amazing doctor. And yet we have to integrate with electronic health records. We have to integrate with, the Medicares, the insurance companies. We have to integrate with, patient portals and systems and things like that. And then there's the scheduling of the patients and reminders to go out to the patients and the emails, and never mind the social media. Like, all this stuff has to come together to create this flawless experience for the customer. Because at the end of the day, it's all about the customer, right? None of the technology really matters unless you're focused on it from the customer's point of view. And if you don't take that point of view and that approach, then you're going to fall short of customer expectations. You're going to start getting people complaining about their experience, or they're just, maybe they won't complain. They just won't keep coming back, right? And a lot of business owners fail to embrace that fact that if a customer doesn't come back, they probably experienced something they didn't like. And technology plays a really vital role in helping to either further the growth of your business as a result of creating that great customer experience, or stopping it dead in its tracks.
Oh, I tell you what. And see, so even from the get-go, things that we think we add on to business after the fact really belong in the forethought, not only in our business plan for this year, not only in our department growth plans for the year. We're talking in our growth strategy. We're talking 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, because that full integration of that really is how we're going to remain relevant.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. And we manage so many different brands and different types of businesses, and everything from angel investing and coaching and consulting with startups and companies that are looking to go public. We do a lot of that. And then we bring on celebrities. There's so many different touch points with a customer that if you're not paying attention to how the customer is experiencing your business, then you're going to fall short of those expectations. And technology, setting up everything from just setting up a basic merchant account, right? If you do that wrong, right, the ability to just accept credit card payments, if you do that wrong, you're going to start getting phone calls from customers like, what's this bill for? I don't understand this. Or if you set up the wrong email address, or you set up the wrong phone number, or the phone tree is not correct, like just the basic stuff in business can really put a big dent in your ability to grow if you do it incorrectly.
I'm going to interrupt right here because somebody that you and I both love and cherish is waving hello. Brenda Franklin is watching us live.
How are you, Brenda? Good to see you, hon.
I know, right? I'm doing this. I was like, oh, we got to interact. I know there's some other people that are watching too, but that's actually how Jeff and I met, was through Brenda once upon a time. And in fact, Brenda's out in Seattle. You usually are in Seattle, Jeff. Scott's out in Seattle. We are having a Pacific Northwest kind of day.
There we go. Yep. Yeah, I was just in Snoqualmie last week, and it's just grown incredibly out there. It's unbelievable.
Oh, I can't imagine. I haven't been back in like 3 years. It's time for me to get back. And that's really interesting to hear because, that's my old stomping ground too. A little more east than that. Well, okay. So we're going to jump back in. Now, you were talking about all these different things that you're thinking about in terms of the types of businesses that you have. And the technology is the core of all of those businesses. Is there something that was surprising to you that was the same across all as you launched? And in some cases, probably relaunched a product after you came in and worked your magic?
Sure. So let me qualify that before I give the answer. And in a former life, if you will, my job was to integrate technology startup companies into Fortune 500 companies. So I would take them, they'd have a great technology, a great idea of how they're going to change the world or revolutionize an industry, but they didn't understand the business of growing their business, right? So that was my role, was to help them understand how do you take the technology and you actually integrate that into a national or international rollout. And that's really challenging to think of when you're creating a technology to begin with, a technology-based business. And so what I realized early on was that the technologists, the IT people, the software developers, all these folks were really, really good about creating great codes and great technology, great pieces of hardware or software from their vantage point. But the challenge was when you go and you interact with customers, right, and this comes back to the innovation mindset, when you interact with customers, it doesn't matter how much you love your product. If you fall in love with it from your vantage point, but the customer hates it, it's not going to get any traction, right? And so I'd say that's the key to any sort of technology you implement in your business. It goes right back to what I said, is what's the customer experience like? Even if you are inside of a big business and you're developing technology use for internal into the organization, you still need to focus on who the end user is. Okay, and it's the same thing when you're setting up technology in your business. Who is going to benefit from this technology? Like, I love business intelligence, data and analytics, and all of that stuff. But when I go and I try to set these programs up, I'm just dismayed at the big companies that are developing these that are not really thinking about all the integrations that are required and who's going to ultimately be looking at these reports, right? So as the CEO, as an executive, you need that high level overview of what's happening in your business. And if all those little cogs in the wheel are not aligned properly, you're not going to get good data and good information back. So when you think about any technology, you want to think about how it's going to benefit the business, yes, but ultimately, who is the end user so you can focus on that user experience and how it's benefiting them as well. And there's just so many little things, of course, on the operational side, there's a million things we can go into, but I'd say that's the big thing that I've noticed across every brand that we've run and we've managed, is that you have to focus on that customer experience. At the end of the day, that's the one thing that matters more than anything else, because I'll tell you, if you get a salesperson out there that starts selling something and they come into the business and they actually bought and they want to do business with you, but then they have a terrible experience, the salesperson is going to hear about it, and then they're never going to come back and do business with you again, right? So that's the way I would look at any technology you bring up in business.
There are like 10 places my mind wants to go, and I've got to narrow it down. Therein lies the space. All right, so I'm thinking of this word that I use occasionally called dimensionality. And it needs a little bit of describing, because on the surface, it sounds like you would know what I'm talking about. But when I say that and then we have conversations without clarifying, we're never, we're still figuring out, I'm figuring out what you just said. What's in my brain that I really like about this word that I made up called dimensionality, or a word that I may have totally changed the meaning of, and how it is received, so we can actually cross that bridge and get traction, right? And in this case, it's a cross conversation. And so I'm thinking about this dimensionality. You have all of this experience and all of this knowledge and all of these ideas. As soon as you sit in a room with that owner, founder, senior developer, architect, right? Software architect, whatever, you now have a whole other set, and everything doubles. You bring in somebody, let's say I happen to be walking by, I'm in the office somewhere, and you're like, Jess, come in here. We have to have your experience as part of this conversation too. I come in, and now that information has cubed, and so on and so forth for all of the experience that we have. So having the right people in the room adds dimensionality. Having the right people looking outward and inward also brings dimensionality, right? So there's the caveat piece of, usually it's, okay, so we've got all this knowledge, but what about the stuff that when we take all of our information and look at it from this lens, and then we take all of that information from all three people, that cubed information, and look at it through a different lens, right? Are we looking inside our company? Are we looking outside our company? Are we looking at product expansion? Are we looking at finding the profit centers and increasing the profit within our business? Could be all kinds of things. So dimensionality, we can go anywhere in the world with this. And so what came up for me around this was that when we have dimensionality, when we consciously seek out and surround ourselves with different experiences so we don't have to have them, and perspectives so that we can catch more things and poke more holes and create a better end experience, if you will, is really necessary. What I notice companies forgetting then is to actually go, so now that we have this and we're making this decision, how do we turn around and go, is it the right decision to be relevant 10 years from now? Because we've decided what that's going to look like. Or is it right to be relevant with our customers today? And sometimes it can be an and sometimes it's an or. And I'm thinking about this. And so and now this is like growth mindset stuff, because we're taking all this external information that we can put into the pot and use. But now it comes down to what's between our ears. And dimensionality really comes, how can we harness that? What can we bring to the table? And so when we're harnessing this mindset, we need a growth mindset. This might not be growth of our company mindset. This might be growth of our self mindset. How often do you find that they interplay well together, or do you end up more working on one or the other at a time?
Oh gosh, I mean, they're so intermingled. You cannot grow a company and be innovative in a company without first expanding your own mind, plain and simple, right? And you can do that, like you said. At first I thought you were saying, dementia. I'm like, well, I don't know if I really want to go that route, but dimensionality, I got that. Okay. So what I would say is when I sit in these rooms, especially when you get into the bigger companies, the $1 billion companies, yes, and you're sitting in the boardrooms, you start bringing in all that experience. And the biggest challenge that I've seen there is that these are the people that are running, maybe $100 million portfolios or departments, and, $1 billion companies, the CEOs of these companies, the board members, and they have so much experience, but they're also very risk averse, right? Because now they are beholden to shareholders, and, of course they have thousands or tens of thousands of employees that they're worrying about. And this risk averse mindset will actually be your Achilles heel when you start thinking about, the growth mindset, right? It's hard to have both in tandem. But that being said, there's always risk mitigation factors you can take into account when you're trying to be innovative. And I'd say that's the key is if you're thinking, 5, 10, 20 years down the road, we don't know what the world's going to look like. We don't know what our customers are going to expect. But we do know one thing for certain. If we don't do anything and change and grow, we're not going to be in business 5, 10, 20 years from now. Plain and simple. We have to do everything, even businesses as simple as Coca-Cola, right? They make a beverage product, but they're still a very innovative company underneath the hood. So you need to start thinking about this innovation within your business. Technology plays a huge role, of course. But I would say that what you don't want to do is have a bunch of ideas coming out and then have all the reasons in the world not to do it, right? That's the area where a lot of people fail and they fall short. Because when you start getting maybe the IT people in, the DevOps teams in there, you start getting the executives in the room, you start getting the salespeople in the room, you get the operations people in the room, and everybody's kind of has their own idea about how to service a customer. At the end of the day, there's about 10,000 reasons not to move forward on any one project, right? Especially once you start getting the controllers and the CFOs in the room, then there's a million reasons not to move forward, right? But at the end of the day, you need to make a decision to move forward and grow. And so you need to start asking the what if questions. So what if this works? What would the experience be like for the customer? How would we end up helping our customers? And how would we grow our bottom line if we did this, right? You just have to ask the what if and be very, this is where a very strong visionary leader is absolutely required for business growth, because that visionary leader is going to be able to challenge the assumptions or those risk-averse mindsets and say, okay, that's great. I understand what your concerns are, but think about it this way. Henry Ford, arguably one of the most inventive people in the automobile industry ever, is quoted as coming in and having a meeting with his team, is a team of engineers, and saying, it's great that we've built, these 4-cylinder engines and even 6-cylinder engines, but I want a V8. I want more power. I want my cars to go faster. I want to be able to drive longer. Figure it out. Oh, we can't do that. And he'd say, no, you can. You can figure it out. And he'd leave, and he'd come back a few weeks later. Where are we? Well, it's not possible. We can't do it. He'd leave. You better figure it out. He'd leave. He'd come back maybe a month, maybe 2 months later. Where are we in this process? Oh, we've been trying, Mr. Ford. It's just not possible. No, it is possible. Figure it out. And so what he would do is he'd start challenging these people. And if you don't have that person to challenge them, and then challenge you as your team and your experts inside the company, then no one's going to move forward, right? Because they look up to that leader to try and figure out where the strategic vision is for the organization. And so at the end of the day, what happened? Well, we got the V8 built. We had the muscle car industry inside the United States, and the big three, and the automobile industry took off like rocket fuel, right? So you have to have that strong leader at the top that's willing to challenge the assumptions, that's also willing to listen to all the critiques and criticisms coming from within the team, but you have to move forward. And that person, they're going to expand their own mindset as well, but they have to expand the team's mindset before any traction can take place.
So far in this conversation, the title of this program is Your Growth Mindset. And we're looking at this from the company side as well as the individual side. And to this moment in time, I've heard two really clear aspects of what is included in a growth mindset from you, Jeff. And the first is that action matters. At some point, take some action, see what happens. There's always the ability to course correct. The second is to that what we were just talking about, challenge assumptions. And when we're talking about challenging assumptions, it's, do we have the courage then to face and ask questions to see what might be lingering right below the surface that is easy, or one of those aha moments, or makes or breaks a positioning play in the marketplace for a new product or a new customer or an existing product or existing customers, right? To go deeper into those areas. Is there anything else besides taking action and challenging assumptions that you feel really needs to belong into this concept of a growth mindset?
I think you need to be innovative. Challenging assumptions is part of being innovative, but a lot of companies will get really good at developing a product. And if it's a slam dunk out of the gates, they're excited about that and they're great. Cool, that's wonderful. But imagine if Steve Jobs said, you know what, we finally got this iPhone. It's a phone, it's an internet browser, and it's an iPod all in your pocket. And he stopped with iPhone 1. Where would we be today, right? Well, where would Apple be today? I guarantee you there'd be other players in the market that would take that and go, oh, wow, we can make this even better. And see, that's the thing that I love doing, is looking at something, and my wife hates this about me. Maybe hate's a strong word, but every time something cool comes along, we get a new toy or new technology or something like that, I'll do something with it, and I'm like, gosh, why doesn't it do this? Right? Like 10 minutes into it. I think it was Louis C.K. had this comic skit on the first time Wi-Fi was brought onto planes. The very first flight he ever took where there was actually Wi-Fi on an airplane. And the guy next to him goes to turn it on, and all of a sudden the Wi-Fi goes out, and the flight attendant comes on and says, well, we're sorry, we're experiencing difficulties. He's like, oh, son of a gun. I can't believe this. This is junk. Blah, blah, blah. He goes, all of a sudden this guy's life is worse for a technology he didn't even know existed 5 minutes ago. How was that even possible? Right? And so we need to think about it in the sense of, we want to be innovative. We want to always be forward thinking. We want to look at the problems that we're experiencing in the marketplace and find ways to solve them and make life easier. Like, when Amazon introduced Prime shipping as a great example.
Yes.
Now we pretty much expect all of our deliveries to be here within 2 days. And if we have to pay, even if it's free, but we have to wait a week, oh my gosh, we're pretty upset about that, right? And so that was an innovative solution. It wasn't really an innovative concept, but it was an innovative solution to get the products to customers faster. And now as a result of that, everybody has this expectation set here, and they want us to deliver much faster, sooner, the on-demand society that we have these days. Think about things like that. The movie industry didn't really change that much, right? Yeah, we have better computers and faster computing speed and all that, but the delivery mechanism changed, right? So we have to be innovative in the way we think about not only the product development and the product life cycle, but the customer experience, the service delivery aspect. And I think customer service and service delivery is the place where most businesses are failing. And if you just figure that part out, you're going to win and succeed. And your customers are going to be your best source of how to grow your business if you listen to them appropriately.
So we have a question from the audience. Robert is asking, I don't often meet salespeople who use the idea of a growth mindset. Many I have found see that as flaky and too soft, not connected to sales. How can I influence and change that approach for my people?
That's a really good question. And you're going to have to forgive my bluntness, but in a former life, I was a Navy submariner. I was a sailor, right? And so what I would just say is that's BS, right? Plain and simple. If a salesperson doesn't think that it's important that they grow individually, then you're going to have those old, crusty salespeople from 20 years ago that are trying to do the same exact sales tactics, and they're going to try and sell the same exact way, but it's a different generation now, right? And so it's hard for them. It may be hard for them to understand that having a growth mindset is important. Okay, that I can believe. But the fact that they don't need to do it, that is utter BS. Because in reality, if they are not growing and they're not learning about the business, right? Salespeople are great at like trying to get that sale and close the sale and move on to the next one. But what they have to realize is there's a whole operational piece behind that sale to keep that customer happy. And they have to learn about what's going on inside the business. They have to learn about the innovations going on inside the business, the vision and the direction of the business. And if they can adopt that and they can start to see why that's important, that is growing their mindset, right? Like if the used car salesman from the 1970s was still on the lot today, he's having a hard time selling some of those cars because cars have changed dramatically. The way that cars are sold has changed dramatically. The types of technology in the cars has changed dramatically. We're not talking, I don't know how many times we're talking about horsepower in cars anymore, right? And so the sales strategies and tactics have to change and evolve as the products change. The conversation with the customers has to change as you talk about somebody, maybe a very affluent, 70-year-old versus, somebody who's 22 years old and a technologist or an IT person who's making 150 grand a year, right? They have very different desires and needs. And that salesperson needs to adapt. And the adaptability of the environment is a growth mindset, in my opinion, right? So if they are not adapting, then one, they're violating the laws of human nature, right? We have to be adaptable in order to survive. But they also need to realize that that is growing. And having those conversations as the manager, as the leader of a sales organization, all you need to really do is help them understand why understanding these new changes is important to their bottom line, right? You bring it back to the what's in it for me, right? And if you can explain to them that them growing and learning how to do sales a little bit differently how to have those conversations better, how to understand the technology on a deeper level so they can explain it to people in a better fashion. I think that is going to help you win those conversations over, rather than you need to have a growth mindset or you need to be innovative, right? Explaining them a reason why will generally help them understand how to do it.
You see? Do you see why this little tickle in my ear said, hey, contact Jeff. It's time for him to be on the Voice of Bold Business Radio. This is it right here. He is our special guest, and he is the COO at Celebrity Lifestyle Brands. Now, let's see. Robert used hashtag VBB Radio. He also may have emailed us, radio@reddirection.com. I don't have that information in front of me. However, we do have those two ways to join in this conversation right now. Hashtag VBB Radio, hashtag radio@reddirection. Join in the conversation. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Voice of Bold Business Radio. In every program, we share stories, tips, and concepts that benefit short-term goals and increase confidence in long-term positioning. Stay current and receive programs to continue sparking ideas about growth strategy by subscribing to the program at voiceofboldbusiness.com. Now, back to Jess.
You are listening to program 199. We're almost at our next milestone. We're hitting that 200 mark later this week. The thing is, we're talking about mindset right now. And how do we innovate? How do we challenge assumptions? And how do we take actions? With Jeff Barnes, a COO that structures and optimizes business processes. Okay, so you know what we've been talking about. So you know where we're going. And I'm just going to ask Jeff, I'm going to jump right in, and I'm going to just jump right in. I've got to know, what happened in your life or career that made you realize that this was the place for you to make a difference?
Well, it was a lot of soul searching, I'll tell you that. And a lot of other people looking at me and saying, no, that's not really what you do. When I try to explain it, you try to give that elevator pitch and explain to people what it is you do. Yeah. I have a very, sordid past, if you will, when it comes to careers, as I'm sure most people do. And I started in the U.S. Navy, 18 years old, went on a submarine, ran a nuclear power plant, ran a division, was a scuba diver, left that, went into corporate America. And it took a long time to realize, a lot of people would say, no, you need to be in charge. You need to do this. And so I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm just a leader then. I'll just do that leadership stuff. But I don't think you can bestow leadership on yourself. That's just
truth.
That other people will tell you are, and you're like, no, I don't know if that's really me or not. But what I found was I got really good at getting people to get things done. Okay. And not a carrot and stick method or anything like that, but it was really we're able to get a lot of things accomplished. So in my business, when I had the corporate job, we were, my division, my region, the Pacific Northwest, Alaska and Hawaii, we were 20% more efficient, if you will, than the rest of the country. And so we started adopting some of my processes and procedures and methods for training and coaching and developing the staff. And then I started running the international projects for our technology division. And it was, again, we're bringing new technologies on at light speed, right, compared to the way corporate America generally operates. And I started working with startup accelerators and things like that. And again, same thing, like helping people go from ideation and concept to minimum viable product to customer testing and the whole life cycle. And of course, learning sales and marketing and all of that stuff in between. It's like, man, I've just done a lot of stuff, and I never really figured out how to break that down. And then one day I'm sitting in this mastermind group and I'm talking to people. I'm like, listen, guys, I've done a lot, and I'm happy with all the experience I've gained, but I can't ever explain it to anybody. Like, no, people look at me, and even when I would have these meetings with people that I've known for years, like, so what is it you really do? And even my friends are like, he's Chandler from Friends, don't you know? Like, Chandler, no one really knows what he does, but somehow he survives, right? And that was the running joke for the longest time. And I started thinking about, well, it's gonna be really hard to get clients or customers if no one really knows what I do, right? So I'm in this mastermind and I'm explaining that to them, and I got like 2 minutes into what I did. Like, wait, stop. So you ran a nuclear power plant on a submarine and led a division of people doing that, right? I was like, yeah. So they're like, okay, so you're pretty good at the operational stuff, right? I'm like, well, yeah, I am. And then they'd let me go on a little bit and talk a little bit more. And it was by being in a group surrounded by a bunch of really smart people that said, listen, it sounds like what you do is you structure and optimize all of the operations you come in contact with. And so they're like, you need to write a book about this. No, and I'd already started the book and I had the outline. So I finished the book. So the book's out on Amazon. It's all hands on deck. And the subtitle is How U.S. Submariners Structure, Systemize, and Optimize Businesses for Success. And that's what I realized I was good at. It wasn't necessarily the leadership. Like, I really do believe that leadership is actually pretty simple if you start taking into account what other people are doing and thinking, right? So what I would do is I'd say, listen, there's all this chaos in a business, any business, right? And especially when you first get started, there's all this chaos. And if we can figure out a way to control the chaos a little bit, then people will be much more receptive to taking direction. And if we can, so that's the structuring. And then it's like, oh my gosh, we're doing all these things repetitively over and over again. Isn't there a technology or computer system or something like this that can help me automate some of this or make it life a little bit easier? And that's the systemize, right? Mm-hmm. So with technology, there's always ways to systemize a lot of this stuff. So now we've got a little bit more structure to the business. Now we've got a little bit more systemization in there. And then it's like, okay, well, that's great. Now we've essentially set a business on autopilot for the way it needs to operate today. Then how do we grow? And now we have to start looking at the customer experience and how do we optimize a business? How do we optimize that business for long-term success? And that's where the innovation comes in. That's where the technology comes in. So all these things played together, right? And that was the best way I could describe it: structure, systemize, and optimize businesses for success. That's really how I came to where I am right now. That's the part that I love doing. You know, the sales and marketing is great. I love learning all that stuff and doing that because that's what drives a business. But for long-term growth and success, you have to have all three of those pieces.
Brilliant. Thank you for sharing that. Now, we had another question come in, and I'm totally going to rearrange a little bit because it pertains to some of what you were sharing in this journey that you were on, which, by the way, I love because it sounds like you're still figuring out what you want to be when you grow up. Me too. Me too. I just know what the strengths are that go into that, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so this is a question from Liam. How much of your Army knowledge and experience have you incorporated into your business? And what are some tips you can share with me?
Well, so I'm hoping he's referring to my Navy experience.
I'm glad you're going to clarify that. Yes, you're Navy, all hands on deck submarines. I should have caught that when I read it because
that's okay. Yes. So, you know, when you're in the military service, of course, you know, you're always, it's a friendly battle, but we all are here in supporting defense of the Constitution, right? So we're all on the same team, but we all have those friendly rivalries. I would say that initially 0%, right? Like the only thing that I took out of the Navy when I left was a bad attitude and discipline. So I was able to get stuff done begrudgingly, right? You know, because when you're working 168 hours a week and you're underway and you're underwater, and we had this thing called 3 knots to nowhere, you essentially sit in a little area, you're looking at gauges and machines and all that, but it doesn't look like the world's changing, you know, Groundhog Day over and over again. You just get a little bit apathetic, right? And you know, just like Jess was saying, I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up at that point. So I just left the Navy with a bad attitude, a chip on my shoulder, but this determination to succeed in whatever I ended up doing, which I didn't know what that was at the time. But I also had the discipline, okay? And I was able to get stuff done very quickly. I had my own systems, my own processes in place for training and learning things because they just pounded information into you in the military that you have to retain. So I guess I figured that part out. But then it wasn't until, you know, just a couple of years ago when I'm on this entrepreneurial journey. I'm like, gosh, what is it I do? And what can I draw from in my past that will really help me with this? And that's when I had those conversations with people like, no, you really need to use that. You need to leverage that because that is who you are. And that was my persona. I didn't realize that. I didn't understand what it was I was doing and how I was projecting myself. But everywhere I'd go, like, oh yeah, you were ex-military, aren't you? I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, you know, yeah, my hair is short right now because I finally got it cut. But you know, I'm like, I'm not wearing the chevrons on the shoulder. I don't have the crows on. You know, I'm not wearing a uniform at all. How do you know? They're like, oh, it's the way you stand, it's the way you present yourself, it's the way you talk to people, things like that. And the fact that you actually get stuff done. I'm like, well, don't most people get things done? They're like, well, not really, actually. It's kind of surprising how little people actually get done in a day.
It's a different kind of skill. Get stuff done.
Exactly. So I would say that what I took was the mindset of the military. So a militaristic mindset, which is you show up to work, you get the job done, you don't stop working until the job is done. And if you can just do that, like that was really simple for me. If you can just do that, then you'll be leaps and bounds ahead of everybody else, right? The other piece that I took was you never stop learning, right? I mean, to this day and until the day I die, I will never stop learning. I love reading. I love podcasts like this. I love listening to people that are, much more influential than I am, smarter than I am in different areas. And I would say that learning all of that stuff and bringing that to the forefront of who I am has really helped me in my business success, right? Right now, we manage e-commerce stores and we do drop shipping as well. I explored drop shipping back in like 2003. I was like, man, this is hard and I don't think I can do this, especially since I was still in the military. So I gave it up and I was like, man, it sounds like a really cool business idea, but I gave it up. And now we're doing, $100,000 a day online in drop shipping, right? So, we have, all this stuff kind of comes around, but I wouldn't have had a clue how to get into that if I hadn't studied it a while ago, right? And I think that's the really important thing is that, the military trained me to be very disciplined and methodical in what I did. And I will tell you, when I first got in, I have the speech I call the shining the valve, right? So you're scrubbing the valve, you're shining the valve, and you're like, this is ridiculous. You're doing the same valve every single day. And you're just like, this is dumb. Like, I don't understand why we're doing this. But then it taught me, okay, there's a reason why we do things, right? Like if that valve is not scrubbed and clean and it seizes up in a moment of an emergency, and that valve is going to save your life, you make sure it's clean, right? So there's that. And there's the discipline, right? That you actually have to get stuff done. You think about the infantrymen and the guys out in the SEALs and the Rangers and all these folks out there that have their weapons that are going to save their life if they work, right? And all that stuff has to work. It has to work every single time. Otherwise, that's their life on the line. So we learned that. We learned team, of course, right? There's no one person that can drive an entire submarine and run all the systems, right? So you learn how to rely on other people. And I'd say if you figure those things out, right? The discipline, the willingness to see things through, the ability to rely on your team and understand that there's a reason behind all of that, then you'll go a really long ways because those components in and of themselves will set you up for success. And it will set you up for success in a way that allows you to maintain your sanity, right? Because I think a lot of people will figure that stuff out. Okay, I got to be disciplined. I got to do the work. I got to see things through. I got to get the job done. But they forget about the team part. And the team part is absolutely vital if you're going to grow a business because you cannot do everything in your business. There's no way. Maybe for the first 6 months or a year, you're trying and you're learning and you're getting great at it, but you cannot do it all. And so once you get out of your own way, then the sky's the limit. But you have to learn all those things.
Agreed. To take that then, all the things, why we want something to be shiny, the way that we do things because it is efficient, gives us the opportunity then to really understand a true concept of innovation, an understanding of where we can find some assumptions, and then be able to go, okay, so now how do we grow our company? How do we solve this next problem? What do I need to hold up the mirror for to continue to develop myself so that I can get really good? One thing I'd like the audience to take away from everything that Jeff has said is that, and that was the most impactful for me because I feel the exact same way, which is, who says I'm a leader? I'm not a leader. I just go do good stuff and I get in rooms with really cool people who want to think and solve problems. And that's what we do together. And so, and it turns out to be great. And there's change and there's frustration and there's fallout and there's potential. And then there's that soaring feeling because all that stuff that you did to get ready, you took that action and now you're seeing it go. And I find that fascinating. And it's just doing good work and working really well to develop our own skills, keep our creativity going, keep our curiosity alive. And so thinking about that, right? All the positive stuff that we think about with mindset that we're looking forward to each day, we do fall. We do fail. We feel like we're not going anywhere. We feel like we're going backwards. Do you have tips for us around not letting those things erode our mindset?
Oh, gosh.
I know. Sorry, that was a big one. Oh, I'm not sorry. I want to know for myself. That's a whole, I got to know the answer to this.
Yeah, no, I'm really glad that you're asking those deep questions because it's a lot more fun to answer those than anything else.
Yes.
I would say that it's different for everybody, right? So everybody has that stress reliever in their life. Maybe they don't even know what it is yet and they haven't figured it out. Right. But you have to find that stuff. And I feel like the number one thing that everybody should do I mean, especially in this day and age when we have our phones, we have computers, we have everything beeping and going off. The first thing is turn off all the notifications so you can actually get stuff done during the day. Like that's a simple one. Turn off all notifications, stop the beeping, the buzzing, the Slacks, the Skypes, the calendar invites, the Outlook email, like your phone going off all the time. Like turn that stuff off during the day so you can actually focus. That's a big one. And then the next thing is disconnect. I mean, just literally unwind and disconnect. And I know for me, like I love getting stuff done. And so I will just work and work and work and work. And I'm traveling right now. And so at 10 o'clock at night, I'm still getting stuff done. And then I'm like, you know what, got to zone out for a little bit. Go read a book, go read a magazine. You know, some people it's watching TV. I try to get rid of the screen time as much as possible, but everybody has their own thing and you just got to figure that out. And I'd say reconnect with nature at some point. There's so many people that have really forgotten that piece. And I'm blessed. I live in an amazing place in the country. I get to travel all over the place. I get to see a lot of really cool things. And I love connecting with nature. I love looking out my windows and seeing the mountains and the ocean and all that stuff in between. And it's just absolutely incredible. And I forget that, you know, when I travel to LA or New York or Chicago, it's a concrete jungle. And people are looking around like, wow, this is incredible. This is a marvel of man, right? But it pales in comparison to what Mother Nature has created. And when you can actually get out there, and this is just, you know, my own take on it. When you look at the stars, or you go out in the desert, or you go in the ocean, or you go for a hike somewhere, and you just look around and you just take it all in, then you realize, wow, you know, at the end of the day, whatever is stressing me out, whatever is bothering me is pretty insignificant when you think about everything else around me that's been created and that will continue to be here after this problem's solved. And for me, that's kind of a weight off my shoulders because it means I don't need to stress out about this right now. I don't need to worry about this. And I feel like there's so many people out there that they put this undue stress on themselves because it has to be done. There's a deadline. But, you know, I was in the military. Now, I know I'm going long on this answer, but let me give you one quick example of what I mean.
Glad. I was going to ask for one, so it's all good.
Okay, perfect. So when I was on the submarine, we're hundreds of feet below the surface, thousands of miles from any land or anybody. Like we're in the middle of nowhere and everything has to work. And my friends and I, we're sitting around, we're talking about all the stuff that we're doing. Like, okay, if this machine over here breaks, we don't have oxygen. If this machine over here or any of the thousands of components attached to it break, we don't have drinkable water, right? We don't have potable water. Right. If this thing doesn't work, then we sink. If this thing works, we don't go up to the surface. Like there's so many things that could go wrong, right? And I'm telling this story to somebody and I'm meeting this guy at a conference. He goes, wow, I couldn't live like that, man. That's unreal. Like I'd be so stressed out. I'd be claustrophobic. I'd lose my mind. That would scare me to death. Like that would be the worst thing in the world to have all those different things that could possibly go wrong. And you could die from any one of them. Like if your dryer catches on fire, you die, right? And he's like telling me all this. I'm like, no, you know, it's your lifestyle. You get to learn how to handle that. I said, well, what did you do? He goes, oh, I was Marine Corps infantry, 1st Division, front line. I'm like, are you kidding me? You know, he's in the Iraq war. He's getting shot at. He's in the foxholes. He's digging desert. He's living in 120-degree heat. And he's telling me that my life is stressful to him. So it's all paradigm, right? It's all your perspective on how you look at things. And I think that's really, that's key to the conversation, which is the stress relievers and the stresses we put ourselves under are different for everybody. If you can figure out what's really stressing you out and you can figure out a way to kind of relieve or alleviate that a little bit, then your life is going to be so much better, right? I mean, I probably have 10,000 emails to follow up on and, you know, a million different things going on. But at the end of the day, I'm not getting shot at. My boat's not sinking. I'm not going to die if I don't get to those emails. And so what's the worst that could possibly happen, right? Like that's kind of the mindset that I take. And that really helps me see myself through. The only other thing I would add to that is if people are struggling with their mindset, with the stress of the day-to-day and all that, go read a book by Viktor Frankl called Man's Search for Meaning. And if you can read that book and put it down and still be completely stressed out about your life, then you need to go get help. Because Dr. Frankl is a Holocaust survivor. And he wrote a book about the experience and about the mindset of it going through all that. And so if you have to read that if you are in a stressed situation, and you have to really absorb it, right? Don't just read it and skim through it. Like absorb the lessons. That will change your life.
Perfect. We will link to your book and Man's Search for Meaning in the show notes so that everybody who's listening has a quick link. No problem. All right. Well, here we have another question. This one's from Amy. And it's a follow-up, so it's going to get into the nuance of some of what you said, I believe. This is my interpretation in the setup here. So Amy is asking, as soon as I start asking myself, what if, I feel less confident. And then I feel like I'm overthinking. What do I do to move what if in a positive direction?
That's a great question. And you're probably right. You probably are overthinking it, and you probably are feeling less confident because you don't have the answers. So the most important thing you can do is surround yourself with people who can help you get clarity on that. I mean, I don't care how smart you are, how brilliant you are. There's this thing called a mastermind, and the mastermind is the most influential, important thing you can do if you want to succeed in life. I have no question about it. Like, that is the most important thing you can do. And a mastermind, if you've read Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, he explains what a mastermind is. But there's a picture that I saw. It was Henry Ford, Carnegie, and Firestone all sitting together talking about how to change the world. Now, some of the most influential people of the 20th century, some of the richest, most successful people of the 20th century, and still talked about today, yet they're there talking to each other about how to change the world, how to develop new products and be innovative. So you're not going to come up with the answers yourself. There's just no way. It's not possible, right? But if you start asking those questions, what if, and you just sit with that question, like just sit with it for a while and just think, your brain will come up with something. I guarantee it. And that something may be, hey, like Jess said, I need to go talk to so-and-so, right? This is the person I need to talk to about this. It may, in the middle of the night at 3 a.m., you wake up, bolt of lightning strikes. You're like, oh my gosh, I have a great idea. Record it in your phone, write it down, whatever you got to do. But don't try to solve the problem. Just start asking those what if questions. What if this technology worked the way we wanted it to do? What would that look like? Right? Don't try and solve the problem yet. Just start asking those questions. And feel it's okay. Sit with the inconfidence that you might have and be experiencing. Sit with that feeling for a little bit, but then realize, you know what, there's an answer somewhere. I don't need to have it right now, but eventually it will present itself to me.
So I was at the Breakthrough Business Mastery program this last weekend with Gary Barnes, and he had a speaker, Martina Reyes, and she says, this is the only thing I remember about her whole talk that comes to mind first. There's a lot that I remember, but this is what comes to mind first. And it just came for me right now when you were saying what you were saying, Jeff. And she says, vegetables, nobody likes. Nobody likes vegetables because they're not scary. We only grow when we are scared, when we feel like there's something to go after, when there's something that we don't know, and we have a pressure. And so I'm thinking back to, thanks, Martina, because I think it applies here too. We don't want to feel uncomfortable, and we do everything in our power not to feel comfortable. And so what do we need to do? Learn how to sit in it. Sit and be uncomfortable without the need to solve the problem. And so thank you for sharing that, Jeff, because it makes perfect sense, yet it's one of the hardest things that we can do.
Very true. It's so hard to do it. But at the end of the day, that's what creates great leaders and successful people, is that they're willing to ask those hard questions and then just sit with it for a little while.
So what makes it bold to integrate both our failures and our successes to build a growth mindset?
Well, I'd say that you have to take your failures into account, whether that's personal or business related. And if you don't sit with those failures, like a lot of people want to shove that away and lock it in a closet and put it in the back of their mind and never think about it again, right? And those are the people that are always scared that it's going to happen again, okay? Because they haven't sat back and analyzed the failures. This is true for business too, right? I've seen businesses make $100 million mistakes. And the ones that fail and go out of business are the ones who don't sit with that and critique it. In the Navy, we actually did critiques of every little thing that went wrong. And I will tell you, I've been on the receiving end of those and the giving end, and they're the most uncomfortable things you could possibly do. But they're also the most enlightening, because you do root cause analysis and you figure out what happened and you fix it. Now, in an engineering world, that's really easy to do, right? Because physics doesn't really change no matter where you are in this world, right? But when it comes to your mental, your spiritual, your psychological aspects, you have to just be willing to explore that a little bit. and ask yourself your questions. Why did I do this? How did this go wrong? How could I have done things differently? How will I learn from this in the future? And that is being bold, because a lot of people won't do that.
You are going to find program notes at voiceofboldbusiness.com/p199. You can also search the website for Jeff Barnes and your growth mindset. Keep this conversation going. Use hashtag VBB Radio. Email us, radio@reddirection.com. It's because of your experiences, my experiences, Jeff's experiences, and the fact we're willing to listen and talk about them, that not only are we defining how to lead effectively, we are continuing to increase our curiosity and move ourselves, our businesses, our teams, the world forward. So wherever you're listening at, iTunes, iHeartRadio, YouTube, you name it, whatever your preferred listening platform, tell us you listened. Give us a rating. Give us a comment, because Jeff is available, I'm available, and we want to make sure that we're having the conversation with you. So get out from between your ears and into the world of digital. Use that technology, and let's keep this conversation going. All right. And we want to leave you with this question. How will you sustain your growth mindset?
The Voice of Bold Business Radio gives you insights about how to achieve your company's growth strategy. When you aren't seeing the growth results you want, it's time to get an outside perspective. To discuss your specific situation around growth strategy, work with us. Visit voiceofboldbusiness.com and click Find Out More. Special thanks to the Scott Treatment for technical production. Thank you for joining us.